Hey, everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing a lot better than this past weekend.
Was this one of the most surprising weekends in terms of having to scramble and get things filled in for surprise injuries and people not being able to make it?
Yeah, there was a number of issues leading up to the show, and some of it wasn't about the wrestlers. So there was just some inner issues that had to be taken care of. So it was a rather annoying weekend.
Huh, shit. Oh, that sucks. Let me ask you, let's talk a little bit about Ground Zero. First, let me say the pay-per-view feed was really good. There was no problems that I ran into. And I think that again, it's so much fun to, as much as I love to be at live events, I also kind of like being able to listen to what you guys have to say because you're entertaining as fuck. So um that aspect of the pay-per-view was really good. How did you feel that went for you guys this time out, being the second time that you've done pay-per-view?
Well, initially, the show got off to a rough start. I'm not going to lie. You know, there were some issues early on in the first couple matches in the segments that had me going crazy at ringside. You know, uh, you know, time cues, and I would have to say that was the main thing
Yeah.
that, you know, when you're doing a talking segment, and I specifically say, hey, make sure you guys, I know you guys like to talk, but to me, it was like, dude, what the fuck? It's like, get to the point and get it done. It's like, I had to go back there screaming. It's like, motherfuckers, it's 8 o'clock already, and we've only had two matches.
Right.
And, everybody was to blame. The first match went long. The second match went long. And, there was just a lot of clunkiness. And it was like, hey, oh boy, this is going to be the perfect ending to the perfect shitty week. But, after, that, things kicked in, and I thought the show was, excellent from that point on. The main event was awesome.
Yeah.
Until the end, of course, and we actually, because of what happened in the main event, are actually changing plans for what we were looking to do for the May 14th show. So now we're kind of adjusting some things. So
Interesting. What did you feel like? The first half of the show kind of was, Suavecito's, some of the younger talent per se, and then the second half of the show, was your Hammerstone, was your Bey and Sefa, the young guy that was your solid established guy. Does that feel like a little bit of that feeds into it, where sometimes the younger guys don't have a full sense of timing and being able to wrap up? And also with you guys, is how much does the referee factor into conveying things to them as well?
we need to have a better system, to be honest with you, in
Yeah.
that spot. We got the radios, but the way they're set up, communication with the referee is extremely important.
Yeah.
When you're supposed to have, you're going to go about 8 minutes, and now you're at 12 or 13. And, I'm not going to blame Bad Bitches and Suavecitos. They're young guys. They're not
Right.
always going to have a great match. Some things aren't going to work sometimes. but you also got to be able to read that. And as young guys, you're saying, well, hey, we'll make up for it. We'll do this and we'll do that. And they're also young, putting together the ideas of the match where they might perceive it as, yeah, this should be good. This should go about 8 minutes. And all of a sudden, like, oh, really? We were over? And it's like, yeah, you were over like 4 or 5 minutes. It was like a match and a half, you know? And in situations and going over, you know, you can go look back to Ice Williams and Funny Bone. That went double time than what it was supposed to do, but it was so good. There was never a point in that match when you watched it and said, man, if they would have cut this out and cut that out, boy, the match would have been great. It was still a great match. And, you know, timing is about trying to get everything in at a certain time frame. You know, I'm never going to cut Sefa and Bey or Hammerstone match or the Unguided. They're like, hey, you need us. No, don't have your match, man. It's like, we're not going to punish you. It's like the younger guys are getting on the show. It's to the point where get it done or, you know, watch from the security position. You know what I mean? It's like, we are now up and running. We're going to have those bigger shows. And on those bigger shows, a lot of guys who've seen a lot of action on a majority of shows, they're not going to be on as many.
Right.
Because we're going to bring in Leo Rush and we're going to bring in, you know, Trey Miguel and Sefa and Bey on more, you know, especially Bey and Sefa on frequent basis. You know, we had Chris Bey set for May 14th with Trey Miguel and Daivari. And in fact, decided to move their tapings 2 days later. So by moving taping, we lost out on that, you know, because to be honest with you, Sefa and Bey versus Lights Camera Faction is probably something Sefa and Bey would love to have, but there is no Bey. So, you know, maybe Sefa and Ice Williams is now something, you know, that we need to discuss, because we were talking about possibly an Ice Williams against Jordan Oliver, and maybe Sefa goes after Hammerstone, you know, for the title. So we may have to shake that up a little bit. Those are two matches that are up in the air, you know, and we got 95% confirmation that on May 8th, Sefa will be there. He's just, you know, making sure of everything, because, you know, he was under the impression Psycho de Mayo with Psycho Clown was more of a lucha show. And it's like, no, it's a regular show. It just so happens that Psycho Clown is going to be on the show. You know, we got Tito Escondido on the show. You know, we got Toko Uso on the show. They'll never be confused with high-flying luchadors. You know what I mean? So it is a traditional high-octane type of show.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And we just happen to have in one of the main matches a lucha legend from Mexico.
Yeah. And being that May 5th is just a few days beforehand, it makes sense to go off of the Cinco theme for a great title for the event. I think that's fucking wonderful.
Yeah, I'm good at that, I'll tell you.
You know, when you look at let me ask you, because you brought up Tito Escondido. When you look at him and Graves in the ring, what were your feelings on the match? And at any point, did you think that the ring might just buckle? Because damn, when slams were going down, that ring was just boom. These guys are big dudes, and it was fucking intense.
And, you know, it's interesting because everybody knows what Graves is capable of doing. He's been a frequent regular for 8-9 years. Tito's been in, Tito's been out. He did the Natural Born Killer show. He is, you know, extremely skilled in jiu-jitsu. And I think the fans got to see a different side of a guy, because in his tag team with Che, they're a little more fast paced. There's double team moves. In this match, you got to see what he was capable of doing on a mat,
Yeah.
and may not have been toe to toe because they were kind of on the ground a lot, but the two of them, you didn't look at it at any point and said, "Oh, Graves is so much better than him on the ground," because it
Right.
was true. It was an evenly matched match to where hopefully it makes people take a little more notice of Tito, because that's like the one thing we need to get him over with the crowd is being a frequent visitor. I
Right.
said before, Brian Cage took a long time to get to where he was perceived as a regular. You know,
Right.
they don't care if you're a local guy or an Arizona guy. They care that you're an FSW guy.
Right.
And for a long time, Tito was, but again, for the last couple of years, not really. While when I talk about the locals, I include Hammerstone and Graves because they've been with me longer than most guys that are local from Vegas who've been in FSW.
Right.
And, a guy like Class is quickly becoming that kind of guy
Yeah.
that, it's like, oh man, there might not be a spot for him the 14th because he's ready to go. You know what I mean? And it's like, does he just show up with the case and decide if he's going to do something? You know, and with Tito, you know, beating some of the younger guys and looking strong is great and all, but beating a guy like Graves should make people take notice. And even Tito, that was his long range plan. He wanted Hammerstone.
Yeah.
Those guys, as you heard on the show last week with Tito, you know, Hammerstone and Tito have been in the ring many, many times, but in most cases, it was in a tag team match with the Gods of War and the Pistoleros or the Wolves Zaddies, after their name change.
um, when I, when I look at, when I look at that intensity that they brought, do you ever take a match like that, let's say, and maybe either through word of mouth, through some of the trainers or guys like Remy, or just directly from yourself, tell some of the students or the younger wrestlers to watch a match like that to see where that line is of believability, and granted that those are two big guys, but if they were lightweights, you would have seen the same intensity out of their characters and who they are in the ring. Is that something that you can point out to the guys to watch and just kind of learn from that type of motivation that you see in a match like that in the ring?
Well, generally, guys like Sin and Kenny, they do a little more of like the match reviews of the stuff because when Kenny is around, a lot of times he's not around during the shows. So he
Right.
wants to see the progression. So if we do a show like last week, Kenny had not been around for a while, and they did some training in the ring, but the last part of it was going over the show because obviously Kenny's been there for a long time and he's hit or miss sometimes on if he's going to be there that week. And for the last couple months, he hasn't really been there. So
Right.
he's looking at the progression, and obviously Kenny is extremely well respected. So, it's good to have him and Sin being around to show people, hey, you know what, this was good, but maybe you should have tried this, or maybe you should have did this. So, I can't wait this week till we do the match review of some of the matches on the show. And I'm not a yeller, but Saturday night I was a yeller. Yeah. But Kenny will tell it like it is to these kids.
Right.
And, you know, I personally believe in some cases what I say might go in one ear out the other, despite the fact that I'm the boss. Do what I
Sure.
need to do, you know. But when Kenny says it, it's like the teacher saying it, you know. When you go to the principal's office, it's a lot of eye rolls, like, oh, I got to go to detention, whatever. He's an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Kenny is like the favorite teacher. So when he says you didn't do something right or you didn't do something well, in more cases they'll feel like they didn't do their job right. They'll feel the disappointment of not making Kenny happy when he may have went over some stuff with them, and then it's like, hey guys, you went 5 minutes over, and Kenny won't mince words about it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because it's very much the student not wanting to let the teacher down, and that's remarkable that Kenny has that relationship with the students. Along those same lines, do the students do they check out the network? Do you know if the guys have been
Yeah,
watching?
some do. There's some that actually have it on there, but we also make it available, for them to see the matches,
Sure.
to see them back. We try to encourage that.
Yeah, I was curious on that, because I think with a tool like a network, whether it be FSW or WWE or Ohio Valley, just to name a few, it's just such a wealth of different matches to be able to watch and to kind of learn from, in terms of just watching the TV product and getting to see how the different wrestlers react and how they use their characters, etc. What would you say is, for you, the biggest pet peeve? Is it the time? Is it going overtime? Or is it something like, faltering out of a character if they maybe, get lost in their head? Or, what is it that really just kind of takes you from, 0 to 10 almost instantaneously?
I don't really think there's anything that brings me to a 10 unless somebody just outwardly, disrespects me and what we're trying to do. You know what
Sure.
I mean? It's like the problem with going overtime is it's something that's fixable and we haven't fixed it.
Right.
For a while everything was working right. In some cases, I guess some guys have gotten some cues to go home earlier than they should have. And my response was, hey, what the fuck? You guys seem like you went short. Oh, well, we got the message from the ref. And it's like, what the fuck? You're supposed to go 12. It only went 9. Like, who's telling you that? So it's like, it's one way or the other. And it's like, obviously, if I'm doing commentary, I'm not able to translate. I try to look up while I'm talking and try to give the hurry the fuck up, especially when it's a promo. But those guys aren't looking at me, or the referee can't really sit and look at me and wait for me. I know back in the old days, we would have like a pencil cue that whoever was ringing the bell would, pick the pencil up or do something to be like, hey, it's time to get rolling. Because go home doesn't mean, okay, stop everything, hit the finisher, and go home. It's
Right.
like, okay, set everything up for the finishing sequence. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's time to go home. We have a 3-hour window, and we only had 8 matches. And we only had, and we had no pre-show match. So everything was concentrated on the 8 matches. And when 2 matches go an hour, you know. And again, unfortunately, there was different circumstances. You know,
Sure.
Class wouldn't have cut the promo about Brandon Gatson, but unfortunately, Brandon Gatson got hurt. So we had to set something up. So that was an extra 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
I was hoping would have been 45 seconds to a minute, you know. And, you know, there was discussions on how we were going to, you know, are we going to do the Death Proof R&B match right after the promo, or we were going to wait, you know? So, you know, things were discussed and we kind of changed it a little bit.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that became the opening segment. Then we went from the opening segment into a match, and then we went into a promo, into a match, and then we went into another promo.
Right.
So, you know, there's some shows that 2 promos are a lot. We had 3 in the first hour, technically. The first 3 matches, we had 3 promos.
Right.
Which is way more. But, you know, that happened because of certain issues. Then later on, MK had to cut the promo because he was supposed to bring out Pillman, and there was no Pillman. And then the ring announcer fucked up. I just told her to say Hammerstone's defending the title. She says he's defending it against Caljack. It's like, that was supposed to be MK's surprise to release when he came out. You know, we try to play it down, but, you know, it was what it was. You know, it's minor mistakes that the average fan who's watching, you know, oh, that was a great show. You know why it was a great show? Because the show ended with a great match. So people forget what happened 2.5 hours earlier. Like, oh, yeah, that Bad Bitches and Suavecitos, man, I thought it was going to be so much better. And did they fuck everything up? No, of course not. They did some good stuff. But I'm only remembering what they didn't do well.
Right.
You know, they went over, and I know that it was pretty clunky in spots. You know, Class and Nino Black, you know, the structure ended up being different than what I wanted. Plus, you know, Nino had been gone for a while. You know, we had seen him since the Nevada State. I needed him as a last-minute replacement. And unfortunately, when you're a wrestler and I'm like, hey, you sure you're ready to go? Oh, yeah, I'm ready. Because they don't want to turn down an opportunity.
Right.
And like, well, you know, the rust definitely showed. So that didn't come across, you know, the way I wanted it. You know, Ricky and Remy was fine. I thought him doing old school Remy was funny. And it's also a change of pace of what we're doing. And that's what needs to be done. And that's why Tito and Graves wasn't the greatest match in the world, but it was really good. And it was totally different than a lot of other stuff. So there was there's way more variety. Like Bey and Sefa, you know, we were discussing, you know, I'm figuring out what's the main event. Do you really put Bey and Sefa over Hammerstone and Pillman? You know, you know, Bey and Sefa are the Vegas superstars. They're the lovable characters. But are we gonna, in some cases, people believe disrespect the heavyweight championship by putting 2 guys that used to be champions in the main event? Well, that kind of became an easy decision once Pillman wasn't part of the equation anymore. You know, it was an MK guy that people had never seen before in FSW. You know, he has a good resume. He's been in blood sports. You know, great athletic wrestling background. You know, definitely can be a monster heel in FSW. You know, but the decision to put, you know, Sefa and Bey in the main event was the right thing to do. You know, it was kind of like we were going to do at No Escape last year. And we weren't going to close with Funny Bone and Cross. But, you know, Kenny felt that was a bigger deal. Their match with Hammerstone and Graves wasn't as much of a blood match. Why should it be in the steel cage? So we ended up moving some things around, and it turned out to be the wisest decision. was Cross and Funny Bone, what turned out to be Cross's last match in FSW. And we had a nice kind of going away ceremony, for Cross. That was a far more enjoyable celebration than the one we saw Saturday night. Sometimes things get overthought. You look at WWE, Drew McIntyre can open up the show. Doesn't mean he's not the main guy. It doesn't mean anything. But when we run shows, we need to have what's going to be the most exciting thing.
Right.
So if we would have had Sefa and Bey as the semi-main event, and then the angle that happened afterwards, I'm pretty certain 20 to 30% of the crowd would have left, and then would have been at Hammerstone for Caljack. But because
Right.
of Sefa and Bey, 95% of the fans were still there. The 5% that left are the ones that came because their family member or their friend, and they're not huge wrestling fans, came to support, and they stayed there a lot of time, and it was time for them to go.
Right.
So it's just always trying to, figure out what the fan base wants to see. And we saw early, as much as early on, like, oh, cool, Pillman's coming, and oh, cool. When they saw Sefa versus Bey, it was like, holy fuck, that's fantastic.
Right.
The match, people, Bey's the guy who got there, and Sefa's the guy who's getting there. And, after next month, inklings of Sefa not being around, well, it's time to use him as often as possible.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. When you first off with Brian Pillman, is he ever going to now come out to FSW when the track record is now every time he's supposed to come in, something happens, either an injury or an illness? You guys are kind of like a repellent for him every time he's supposed to be coming.
Yeah. I believe there was actually a third time when we had him getting ready to be set up, and then we had to cancel because of COVID stuff.
Wow.
Like, looking at a date, and he agreed upon it. And I think I just made his airfare, and it was like, oh shit, we need to close down. So, the third time definitely wasn't the charm. I have to give somebody the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
I didn't notice him in the crowd at UFC, but then again, I didn't watch it. So, if there's any screenshots, then I guess I could doubt, what he says. But, said he, it is what it is. And,
Sure.
We adjust. Like I said, it was an irritating weekend. Things happened. And all of a sudden I woke up from a message at 5:30 in the morning. I woke up at like 8:30 on Friday morning, the day before the show, where he sent me the message.
Yeah.
Like, motherfucker. And then I wake up Saturday morning, and then there's the message from Brandon Gatson that he either, tore his groin or his quad. I don't know which one you root for in that situation. So it's like, and, unfortunately for Gatson, the injury bug has really, hurt him in FSW.
Yeah.
Bounced back strong against Vandergrift, but got hurt in the match, was off for a few months. Had him back, was in a crazy ladder match. Nothing happened to him, and then he got hurt doing something else. A few years back, he was doing some stuff with Jacob Austin Young. He turned heel on him when they had been working together, and then he really had some major back issues and basically stopped wrestling for a very long time. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's hard to put people in positions. As we said, we talked about the scramble match on May 14th, that we have Eli Everfly and Funny Bone and Adrian Quest and Jack Cartwheel and Brandon Gatson. I hit him up yesterday. He said he was walking a little better. I believe he said he tore his groin muscle. So, I'm hoping that's less than a 3-week gestation period where he can, be available. But, that's a high impact match. And Brandon Gatson does a lot of very athletic moves that I think might be pretty difficult with a torn groin.
Oh man, just hearing that just keeps ow, 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 ow. So what did you think about Cal and his work filling in for Pillman? Was this your first time working with him, or was it something that you've met him before, been familiar with, or was this straight through MK who came through on this?
No. I had never met him before. We had talked on Twitter. He had messaged us that he was moving to Vegas, blah, blah, blah. He was going to come down. And I guess I was out with the COVID, and he kind of came in with the Hood Slam crew that was there when Sin was training class one day. Super Beast and Dark Sheik and the Otto Von Clutch guy who trains with us a bit, and Cal Jack. But I hadn't seen him, since then. And then again, we talked a little bit. I had reached out. MK had reached out. We were even talking to Brian Cage about making a surprise appearance, which would be in the cards, but he was unavailable. And we hit up about two or three people, Toko Uso, obviously through MK, because they initially were available to work this show, but we just didn't have anything for them. So now it's Friday, and hitting up Juicy and we're hitting up Toa, and, they just couldn't make it happen. So,
Right.
We're in scramble mode. We want to have Hammerstone wrestle somebody who's done, things in this business. And fortunately, Cal Jack was available. I know recently he's been appearing on the Bloodsport shows. I've heard good things about him in NorCal. Well, if there's any time he's going to debut, then this might be it. I guess him and Hammerstone wrestled once before, and in the match, Cal Jack separated his shoulder, and they immediately called the match. That's how badly he was injured.
Wow.
So I was very excited, for the opportunity to try to, I guess you could say, redeem himself.
Sure.
And, it's a pretty impressive sight watching Hammerstone, hit the nightmare pendulum on a guy that size, as well as, the stalling standing suplex.
Yep.
That for show, Hammerstone felt it was a necessary thing to keep him up there for as long as humanly possible.
Which was really fucking impressive, man. Boy, every time I see Hammerstone like post pictures from in the gym and stuff, it's just so inspiring to see where he was when he first came in with FSW to how much he's really grown into not only this physical specimen, but you could tell that he takes everything seriously when it comes to this being his career and his job. Is that an example some of the younger guys are hopefully getting the rub from having Hammerstone around and seeing, his progress and the way he's, not only developing body wise, but also in terms of his in-ring abilities and his storytelling and his mic skill? You're probably not going to have Hammerstone around very much longer, because he's right at that peak of the cusp of going to one of the big organizations.
Well, Actually, we're thankful that he still has a ways to go at MLW. He's extremely happy there. They've gotten some new deals. It gives
Yeah.
him the freedom to go out and do things. So we love companies that are considered national companies like MLW and Impact and AEW, where you can still utilize their talent. You know,
Right.
the biggest disappointment is, and I know it's great for Cross and it's great for Lacey and it's great for Ryan Taylor and it's great for LA Knight, and that's where they want to be. But, as the promoter, who feels like, damn, if they were at the other company, man, our great roster would be even better. You
Right.
know, when Cross was an Impact, we used him.
Right.
When Brian Cage and LA Knight were Impact champions, we used them,
Yep.
and, you know, once you get to number one, WWE, it's like, boom, you're done, and it's like if Sefa is getting signed, it's like, I know the Fed's got the family there, but it's like, oh, it'd be so nice if we went to Ring of Honor or AEW or Impact. And of course, that's just the selfishness of me. We've
Sure.
been lucky enough to have this great homegrown talent, better than pretty much everywhere. Santino's got what, Bateman and Brody King and Ring of Honor,
Right.
and that's fantastic. And Jake Atlas is in NXT, but
Right.
taking credit for Matt Vandegrift. So, but I know Chaos would have a different say in that matter. But if a Vandegrift or Damian Drake and them get signed, we do have Bay's our guy. Lacey's our girl. Cross is our guy. We used LA Knight for a long time. We didn't train him, obviously. We used Ryan Taylor tons of times, Willie Mack. We didn't train them. But we did train, Damian Drake and Bay. And, AAA is a big deal, too. They're number one in Mexico,
Right.
and, we're hoping we could just keep the cycle going.
Speaking of AAA and Cycle Clown coming in, do you have an idea of? I don't think it's been announced yet who he's wrestling. Do you have any ideas of what you're planning on doing?
I'm not planning on doing anything. I'm planning on giving them the ring. In reality, MK kind of put that deal together,
Sure.
and I guess he talked with Conan because they were doing some stuff with Psycho Clown, and he gave him the option, and he told him FSW. Conan knows as well. They're bringing in Psycho Clown, and they're bringing in a opponent for him.
Okay.
When I asked MK the other day, like, can we announce anything? What's going on? He's like, well, we'll know in a couple days and we'll be able to make an announcement, I hope, for what is going to take place that day. So.
And fans, that is May 8th. That will be going on. On that card too, I saw you announced a very, very intriguing match, and that is Strella versus Sandra Moon in a no DQ match. Is this where we see the vicious side of Sandra Moon?
Well, what we perceived at that last show that they were on was going to be the culmination of what really is a number one contender match, regardless of being part of the crew with Maserati, because whoever wins that match is next in line for that top dog,
Right.
and whether Estrella put it upon herself, there was really no clear-cut victory. Sandra won the match, and, maybe without the exposed turnbuckle. So I just felt that the number one contender match didn't really sit well with me of a convincing win. So
Right.
I figured, you know what? Let's do it again. Let's do it no DQ. That way there's no excuses. And, and right now it's an elimination match. The winner of that match will wrestle Maserati at Changing the Game on May 14th for the FSW Women's Championship. So, it's tough for Sandra Moon because she just finally beat Strella.
Right.
Because now if she loses, it's 1-1, but she'll get the short end of the stick. But
right.
That's the way it is, Get the job done on the 8th, and you won't have to worry about it.
And what's fun with that is the fact that it's a no DQ, and Strella and her relationship with Maserati. There's so many different avenues that can happen with that being a no DQ. I just love that idea. Who else do you have scheduled so far in matches, or on the card at least, even if they don't have matches, so that fans watching and listening can start filling in the picture, and hopefully subscribe to the network, because it will be on the network, and this one is not a pay-per-view on the network. So network subscription is the best way to go if you're not able to.
Yep, it gets you the ability to watch the show as part of the subscription price. Also, May 28th at Future Shock will be another one that will be there. So that's 2 network exclusive events, as well as all the footage for $7.
Yep.
So, I know there's been inklings from some people about, well, why do we got to pay for anything? You know what I mean? And it's like, well, unfortunately, things cost money, and we're trying to keep it away from Fight TV in some situations. Like now, that's going to be a big pay-per-view, but because it's on Fight TV, because we kind of got to deal with them to run an X amount of stuff, blah, 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 you're paying $15 and you're still a network subscriber. So paying $7 and being a network subscriber is probably a way better deal. And you're generally going to get 1 or 2 network exclusives at no cost along with the subscription price. But, after we saw a couple weeks back, Rocky T reinstated Brett the Threat, and then he wrestled Nick Zander. And in reality, thanks to Rocky, Nick Zander lost, with the referee's back turned. And then Brett the Threat went insane and took out Rocky T. Now, in my position, I was ready to suspend, Brett the Threat, but Rocky T, he wants Brett in a match. And I know he's been training with some guys and stuff like that, and he doesn't really want a wrestling match. He wants a fight. So we have no DQ in one match, and now we got a street fight in another.
Yeah, Rocky's words in his little sit-down interview that was released a couple of days ago really shined a light on what could very well be a spectacularly entertaining match.
I just want to know if the parrot's going to be there. We can introduce him as Rocky Beware.
Oh man. I would expect too, with Rocky's extensive memorabilia collection, that Frankie has to be somewhere in his collection, right? He's got to have Coco's bird there somewhere.
He's gotta, he's bought anything at every Comic-Con that's and wrestling collectible show.
Oh, I can't wait until WWE Lost Treasure shows up on Rocky's doorstep to buy back something.
If they need anything, he's the guy to go to. Especially if they need any Hulk Hogan memorabilia.
True.
The big question is, here's the big question. I heard Caesar's Palace has it up on the board. What song is Rocky T coming out to? Real American or the NWO theme?
Well, I think Rocky, if he thinks outside of the box, goes with the American-made WCW theme that Hogan had. um, oh man, when you're looking at who else is going to be on the show, is there any other names that you have on the show that might not be in matches right now?
Tito Escondido is going to be there. Toko Uso is going to be there. You know, a bunch of our regular crew, Creature Feature, most likely Sky High, you know, Nick and Chase, trying to get some younger talent on, but, you know, we're focusing more of that on for the May 28th Future Shock show. So
Sure.
It's trying to mix and match and make sure, you know, things are in place. Shogun looks like he's ready to return on May 8th. Kind of took a little hiatus after losing the tag titles, you know, get his mind straight, wasn't happy with the way things turned out. So, you know, it's a pretty stacked card. You got, like I said, it's Psycho Clown, whoever he's taking on from AAA. So it's going to be another AAA wrestler. And
Right.
we got the street fight, and we got the no DQ match. And in all honesty, I'm looking at, which I think would be a great matchup for both men, is Tito Escondido against Hero Lou.
Wow. Yeah. That's two big boys in the ring, man. That would be wonderful and a good experience for Hero as well. The Ice Camera faction, you know, they had their moment of
and Sefa most likely will be there.
With Ice Camera faction, how are you feeling so far with the way that group is gelling together now with Ice into the mix?
Well, you know, Ice has always been an opportunist. So him aligning with them, you know, he never wants to lose that No Limits championship, but I'm pretty sure he's got guys like Sefa and Chris Bey and even a Jay Vidal. And if you talk to Matt Vandergriff, you know, those guys, they all want to get that championship around their waist. So there's no shortage of challengers. You know, I'd love to see Eli Everfly and Ice Williams, you know, Brandon Gatson and Ice Williams.
Yeah.
You know, Adrian Quest, you know, there's so much talent, you know, it's mind-boggling, you know, the people we can bring in, you know, and, you know, the question is how well they're all going to get along, because, you know, Watson, he's like that quiet assassin. He doesn't say too much. Fresco's kind of the opposite, but to me, it's like, well, who is the leader? Is it Braxton or is it Ice?
Right.
And I can't see, maybe because they helped them and did stuff, Ice is more than happy to, you know, let Braxton be in control. But when things don't go well, how quickly does Ice turn on him? You know what I mean?
Right.
There can't be two leaders.
It reminds me a lot of the Nation of Domination when The Rock came in, and all of a sudden Farouk started going from the boss down, and out. So very interested to see if that plays out close to that. What are your feelings about the way you know, someone like Watson is coming along in the ring? Are you looking, like a guy like that, are you looking to try to get a little more in-ring time, or, you know, if they again, is it fighting for position on shows between all these guys?
Well, because of the structure of the group at this point, Braxton's more or less the manager. He'll get involved, I would assume, in the six mans and things like that. But there's got to be the odd man out. Ice is the no limits champion. So due to the structure of getting matches on and getting people, Fresco and Watson are probably going to be, the long-term tag team as long as everything kind of works out. Not that Watson can't be involved in the Nevada State and he won't work singles matches, he will. But, that's kind of how the pecking order was before. Watson was more of the singles guy, even though he did team with Fresco. But Braxton and Fresco teamed up a little bit more when Watson was involved in, say, the Nevada State tournament, where, he did get a win. He did beat Hero. Even it was through help, but he's definitely talented enough. He's a guy who came to us a few years ago, and guys like Graves and Hammerstone put him over, and he was winning championships in Arizona. And he came to us, and at that time, I felt he wasn't ready to be a main player in FSW. He had a great attitude. He was a good worker. Not to disrespect Arizona, but FSW just happens to have way more talent than they do. So while Watson kind of settled in the mid-card, low mid-card, he was used to main eventing in Arizona, and got to give him all the credit, because in situations like that, sometimes people's ego makes them feel, what? Fuck FSW. They don't see me, instead of looking at it as they don't know what they're talking about. In Arizona, I'm the man. He's just looking to get better. And that's how he get better. Hammerstone and Graves were the same way. Hammerstone had to get out of Arizona, and that's why he credits us with everything. And you would think that we trained him, the way he puts us over. And we talk about how Graves, he might work Navajo's show in Arizona, but other than that, he almost barely never works those shows, So, Watson saw the value of working with, whether it was our, main event guys or it was with our younger talent, because at that point, Shogun and Watson, Watson had a little more seasoning, I guess you could say, by wrestling more matches. But we felt Shogun was ahead of him at that point with less training because of who he got to train with, every day. You walk into the facility and you could have Sin, and you could have Remy, and you can have Cody, and you could have Damian Drake and Vandergriff, and at the time Cross and the Bonus Boys, and 30 guys that when we don't have a show on a weekend, they're all out traveling, because FSW Arizona, as I like to call the Arizona Wrestling Federation, go look at their last show. They use Creature Feature and the R&B were in one tag match together. Parada's their champ, even though he's an Arizona guy. Jay Vidal was on the show. And, even I believe Nick Xander was on the show. So they're starting, like, they obviously have to watch everything we do, because even our youngest guys are seemingly getting opportunities there, and all credit to them for doing it. And I joke around when I say FSW Arizona, because we did have one there for a while, and loved it again. But our guys have really shined when they've gotten the opportunities to be elsewhere, and they continue to get them.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that came up at Ground Zero was the R&B Death Proof best of, what is it, best of 21 or best of 50 matches?
Yeah, what happened was Death Proof, who looked in their eyes to be in line to be the first challengers for the unguided. Do they have a beef? Yeah, I guess they do. You know, when they had the number one contender match, you know, shortcuts were had, but the bottom line was the unguided won the match. They went on for the title match and they won it. Death Proof lost. Then recently it was an unofficial number one contenders match. It just was a 4-way tag match. Let's see what's going on. So RMB, Toko Uso, which was their first time in FSW, Death Proof, and Sky High were in a 4-way. Well, RMB won the match. The last time RMB and Death Proof had a match was at No Escape 2020. And RMB won that match. So when Death Proof comes out screaming that they've been mistreated, and you know, it was a little uncharacteristic of Cody. He was screaming at the fans. He was getting into it with somebody. Like, you know, not that Cody isn't like that at training sometimes. You know, he's a very emotional person.
Sure.
So he was pissed off. And we had talked about, you know, something later on in the show, and he demanded that they come out. So that really wasn't the way it was supposed to be. So Cody comes out, and then R&B, I guess they have the same right to say, hey, wait a second, we just won this match. And they've gone back and forth, and Death Proof has won their matches against R&B, and R&B's won their matches. So, which I think is a brilliant idea. One match anybody can win. Slip on a banana peel, hit you with a baseball bat, you know. At least in a 2 out of 3 match setting, you're hoping, just like in baseball, the longer the series goes, you know, the better chance that the better team wins.
Sure.
One is 50-50. One match, 50-50, goes either way, especially on those two teams. Now, 2 out of 3, well, it's 67%. Somebody's got to come up top to where at least the perception is we earned it, you know?
Right.
So the first match was had, and exactly what Cody expected to happen happened. R&B took the shortcut, but they got the win. So now, for them, it's 50-50. They only got to win one of the next 2 matches.
Right.
And, you know, May 14th is the next match. So in my mind, as we're setting up for the anniversary show, which I'm pretty certain is going to be the 2-night affair, Friday the 18th, Saturday the 19th, you know, that there's a good chance that if R&B wins on May 14th, they'll get the title shot at the anniversary. If Death Proof wins, then we go to the first night of the anniversary and they wrestle. And then the winner challenges the unguided the next night on the 19th.
Sure.
So, you know, as we speak, I'm trying to pencil things in, you know, what we're looking to do, you know, what big name guy, you know, is going to wrestle for the championship. You know, is MK going to, you know, bring in? I know he's talking to some former champions. I know he's been talking to, and I'm talking about former FSW champions as well as, you know, some of the top talent from around the country. So, you know, I'm talking about being that one possibility is on the 18th, we do our Against All Odds Rumble match, being it an Against All Odds. And instead, the next night, that becomes the main event. You know, so it's trying to come up with different ideas. You know, 30-man Rumble on the Saturday night. And then on Sunday, if Hammerstone's the champ or whoever is the champ, they get that title match.
Yeah.
You know? So we'd love to have Chris Bey on board. Love to have Sefa on board, you know? So there's so many good wrestlers. And now, when I talked about earlier about time constraints and things like that, on the 2-night show, we can kind of space some things out. You know, I don't have to
Right.
worry about getting 9 or 10 matches on the show. You know, I
Right.
could be comfortable, especially on a Rumble match when there's 30 guys. We've always been doing like 5 matches, maybe 6, but maybe we just do the 5 with the Rumble, and then we save 8 for the second night. And
Right.
then the idea would be to do the Hall of Fame ceremony on the Thursday.
Sure.
So we'll see. You know, by June 18th, the word is if things are going the way they're going right now, there's going to be no capacity limits and no social distancing. As of Friday, we're down to 3 feet. So now we don't have to worry about trying to skirt things a little bit. Hey, that's only 5 feet 2 inches, Joe. Who gives a fuck?
As we wrap up here, I wanted to get your opinion as a promoter and a wrestling fan on this past Sunday, the Impact pay-per-view where you had Rich Swann dropping the title of Impact to and TNA to Kenny Omega. Is it smart what they're doing with Kenny in making him the belt collector from all these different organizations?
Well, I got a question for you. Who's a bigger company, AEW or Impact?
Yeah, I would have to say the one with the TV deal on TNT. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so they have the power in
Yeah,
that situation. So the match happened on whose pay-per-view?
yeah, an Impact's pay-per-view.
So does that mean more people from AEW watch the Impact taping to see their guy?
I'd hope so. I really would
You
hope
know,
so.
if they got 20 more buys, you know, here's a fact that some people know, some people don't know. A few years ago, Kenny Omega's working for Ring of Honor. He's doing the New Japan thing mainly, but he comes over for Ring of Honor. So we were doing a Mecca. We were trying to get Kenny Omega. Who was the contact that I was told to contact that if anybody can get him there, he'd be the guy? Well, it's Scott D'Amore, the executive vice president of Impact. So
Yeah,
there's no doubt that that deal came into fruition through them. Impact's job is to get as many eyes as them as possible.
right.
AEW's got a TNT deal. Impact has a much smaller television deal. AEW and Impact are pretty different in the styles and things they use, but
Sure.
if anybody's going to doubt Impact's roster, they're out of their mind. If
Right.
anybody's going to be like, "Oh, AEW's roster, oh, it kills Impact's roster," well, guys who I love that have worked for me numerous times, Lance Hoyt, Brian Cage on the AEW side, the Young Bucks, okay, Jericho, they might have some more, and of course a Moxley, who's one of the biggest names. But now Impact Wrestling has one of the biggest names in the world on their show on a frequent basis. But
Right.
they also have the guys that were similar to Cage. You know, 2 years ago, Cage and Callahan were on equal standards doing Impact, doing the Indies, and the Rascals, and Trey Miguel, and Sabin and Shelley, and Moose, and, you know, TJP. You know, you can't look at Impact's roster and say, "Oh, wow, this is garbage." And they got, you know, the Good Brothers, you know, and
Yeah.
now Impact's got New Japan team as their tag champions.
Right.
But there's got to be some kind of deal with New Japan. New Japan first off had to allow those guys to go work the show. So you don't work the show
Right.
without an agreement. So in reality, as big as AEW is compared to Impact, all it is that territory thing. Well, what works better? Well, if FSW did shows on a frequent basis, and now all of a sudden we did shows with Defy and the places out of Texas and all these major companies, now we would have their fans, our fans, and the other companies' fans. And that's why we're in discussions in dealing with some of the bigger independent companies to do with things like GCW, where we reach out to them. Hey, bro, what could we do? How can we help? You need anybody? You want the ring? What's going on? We're the ones who make those moves. You know, we get contacts, of course, but I'm the one. Hey, Impact Wrestling, you know, what do you think about this, this, and this? That was, 5-6 years ago when we were contacted, and we contacted Global Force Wrestling with Jeff Jarrett. It starts from there. It's putting in the hustle. It's getting the work. And it can't be like, hey, we want to do this for you. Give us money. It's like, okay, this is what we can do for you. This is how we can help you. We feel we'd be a benefit. We got a place called Samstown. I can hook you up with the guy. Bing, bang, boom. So why would you want to work with somebody else? I'm the one who's putting in the legwork for you, making things easier. In the initial deal with Impact, I was the middle guy. We did a lot of stuff through me. And then as they built their own relationship, we help out and we do a lot of things for them. But they kind of deal with that. And, Joe doesn't have to be the guy to get, coffee stirrers for Scott D'Amore. When I'm walking out the door and he's saying, hey, you know where I get the coffee stirrers? Like, really? You're asking me for that? But guess what? Ring of Honor's in town. They don't need a lot of help from us, but they use our guys. They use our ring crew. They use our guardrails instead of the ring because they got their own. They use the crash, they use the padding sometimes when they need it. And even when AEW was here, and, they used 12 of our guys as extras, and, they needed a crash pad to work on things. And we're always there for these companies. And the reason they come at us is because we've built that up. A guy like Matt Hardy, a guy like Brian Cage, Lance Hoyt, all these guys. Oh yeah, you could go talk to Joe at FSW,
Yeah.
And that's part of, if we were just a locally based company that really didn't bring anybody in, we would have no reach outside Las Vegas. And our goal is to get as much reach as possible. And I don't feel we're anywhere near where we would like to be. So the part of working with, WAC in California and Defy and all these companies, if you go on Twitter, there's 100 companies, and, some of them, like, they really don't have much of a following.
Right.
And as much as I need it to benefit us, it needs to benefit all parties.
Right.
And the long road back to the Impact thing is, I see a lot of people complaining, like, oh, I can't believe it. They put Kenny Omega over. Like, okay, first off, did you think they were going to put Rich Swann over? Or did you think worse, that they were going to do a giant schmoz with both locker rooms clearing, and then it leads to nothing, like back in the old days when the AWA and the NWA, they would go to New York or the Meadowlands and have Flair versus Bockwinkel, and it would be a time limit draw, a double count out. There would never be a winner, but that was their way to try to answer the WWF's dominance at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
Get into Madison Square Garden, but they can go to the Meadowlands, and they were able to do a show there. And they would do the show there, and they would still have, a fourth of what the WWF would draw, and that was with Flair and Bockwinkel there in the main event, because they had to juice it up and make it a double company card, because they needed as many fans as they could to be there. And how could they do it? The AWA didn't have a lot of reach on the East Coast, and neither did NWA, but they still had their fans. So they would show, and it was all right. They did pretty well, but they didn't do what the numbers the WWF would do. And, what is Impact's long-term strategy? I have no idea. You know, I remember years ago, Matt Hardy was a guest on my radio show. And at the time, I believe they put over like maybe it was Kane and Rock. Were they ever tag champions?
It might have been like Kane and
Austin?
It might have been like even Kane and RVD or Kane and X-Pac. Or
No, this was way before that. This was
okay.
like the Stone Cold Rock. I think Kane might have been involved, but I remember it was like the hot tag teams with the Hardys and Edge and Christian and my guy, I assume the Dudleys or whatever. But I
Right.
remember the makeshift tag team winning the tag belts. And my question to Matt Hardy was, you know, how does it feel watching the makeshift tag team come in? And he was all for it, he said, because when one of us win the belts back, it's a bigger deal. But
Right.
I understand that. But in a lot of cases, those tag teams imploded and they either gave up the belts or lost because of the infighting. And it didn't make the Hardys or Edge and Christian look good.
Right.
They just were there and were the guys who collected the belts. And if Kenny Omega doesn't drop the Impact version of the belt to somebody like a Moose or whoever it is, because then other than getting the new viewers and things like that, as a company, you got to get that win back, you know?
Right.
And right now, Impact has lost the tag titles to a New Japan team, and they've lost, you know, and everybody thought that Good Brothers were going to win the titles back because with New Japan and the travel restrictions, who knows how often you're going to get, you know, Juice and Finley, you know?
Right.
And it's a good concept and it's a good opportunity for some of the other tag teams to get opportunities against them. But
Right.
you know, is the big play a joint pay-per-view? Is it, you know, all three of them combining forces for a super show? You
Yeah.
know, I guess we got to wait and see, but I can't believe Impact would just be like, okay, Swan's going to lose to you. And then in 3 months, you just drop the belt. We'll forget all about it. And then we'll have another tournament to crown a champion. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
If that is the case, then that's horrible. But I just can't believe that would be the case.
Yeah. Especially with the guys over there being as smart as they are in terms of the business. I think you're right that, you know, once the attention is given, then the eventual, you know, loss coming back to Impact is definitely in the cards, I believe. As we wrap up here, Joe, any final thoughts for the listeners and viewers today? And also a reminder, everyone, that if you subscribe to FSW Network, this upcoming show on May 8th is going to be included in that subscription. So definitely take the time to subscribe. And Joe, any final thoughts?
Yeah, we're taking a week off from running shows. You know, I can use the break, you know, but we'll be back May 8th when, you know, and again, because of our good rapport with so many companies, we got Psycho Clown and another representative of AAA. I'm assuming you're going to have a match at Psycho de Mayo. We got a street fight. We got a no DQ match. We got Tito Escondido. We got Sefa, Hero Lou, you know, maybe the Unguided, you know, they like to show up every show, you know, they're always looking to work, you know. So
maybe that's your maybe that's the AAA surprise right there. They'll give Damian Drake and Vandergriff versus Psycho Clown.
Yeah, there you go. And then you know, but you know, here's a trivia shout out. The Unguided have now tied Kenny and Shogun for most title defenses. So, you know,
I have to say, when I was watching the show and you said that, I just lost it. I thought that was very, very clever and funny and true. But
Right. So
yeah.
I hope I don't offend anybody because I offend a lot of people, as I'm told. So
Well, we wouldn't want it any other way, man.
yeah.
Keep offending. Everyone, thank you for tuning in and listening. Again, please check out FSW, check out the network, check out, if you're in Vegas and you haven't gone to a show in a while, as things start loosening up restriction wise and more capacity is available, please stop in and watch a live show. It's been, too long for a lot of people since they've been able to enjoy live entertainment, let alone live wrestling. And please check out the Vegas Bad Boys of Podcasting and all the stuff we offer. And until next time, thank you, everybody. We'll see you then.